topic is crime and corruption. Whether we talk of crime or corruption, we are basically talking of the violation of an order, of a system. Now, orders, systems, and therefore crimes and corruption are all of two types that are fundamentally and dimensionally different. If one is serious about the issue of crime, corruption, etc., one has to then sincerely go into these two types and understand what they are. One is the order that is man-made, a product of man's thinking, a product of man's experiences, a product of all the influences on man. From there, man devises an order. And from that order emerges one particular definition of crime. That crime is when that order is violated. We very simplistically term it as a crime, a deviation, or in more polite terms we just call it corruption. This order, because it is man-made, is also subject to all the vagaries of man's mind and is just like everything man-made. When one has a man-made order, that order cannot be absolute. That order cannot be universal. And that order cannot be timeless. That order cannot have a uniform applicability. One man's order is one man's concept. One man's order is one man's view and opinion. It will not necessarily, actually definitely not be shared by another man. It is highly unlikely that it would be acceptable to someone else in some other condition. It is in fact also likely that it will not appear right to the same man in some other condition. Space will prove the order as false and hollow, in the sense that some other man in some other condition will not accept the legitimacy, the applicability of that order. And if some other person were not sufficient as an evidence, the same person himself would not agree to his own concept after some time, when situations change. In fact, that time itself might not be too long, because every man-made order is a concept, is a thought. It changes as rapidly as our thoughts change, and thoughts take no time to change. One may suppress them, one may bring about an artificial harmony, one may bring about a cosmetic uniformity. But the fact of everything man made is that it is brought about by time and is hence subject to be changed by time. So, every system, every order made by man will be relative, and relative to just too many things and factors. That is the reason why we see so much disorder, because all our orders are just concepts brought about by man's education, conditioning, and experience. They are a product of man's thinking. They are going to be violated. There would never be total adherence. And if total adherence is attempted to be brought about, then a lot of greed and fear would be used, which is in itself a bigger crime. You see, in order to mitigate a smaller crime, one will then have to use a bigger crime. In Hitler's Germany, crime rates were very low. In the period of the promulgation of the emergency in India, adherence to schedules and orders rose. In general, the government and other machineries became more disciplined. But to bring about that order, as you know, there is a lot of greed, fear, and violence. That is the limitation of all human orders. And that is why man has been incessantly struggling with the issue of order, crime, corruption, harmony, discipline, discord. Then those who have gone sincerely and deeply into the issue have realized something. They have said that till the time man is not driven by an absolute order, it would remain his fate to live in chaos, discord, and violence. No law, no commandment, no discipline would be able to rid him of his inner hollow. There would be no harmonious movement in the society between man and man, and there would be no harmony within man. They have then stressed upon the inevitability of the inner order. That inner order is one's own natural responsibility to that which he anyway cannot escape. That natural order is one's allegiance, one's devotion to peace, to truth, to simplicity. This order is not man-made, this order need not be taught, this order cannot be taught unless there is that inner order where one feels responsible towards that which he anyway really likes, his own inner peace. Discord and all kinds of corruption would keep showing up. So no problem, whether it is the problem of demonetization or any other kind of chaos. I hope we are able to understand that problems keep on changing their names. Sometimes they are called as the problem of fake currency, sometimes they become the problem of political instability, sometimes they become the problem of religious acrimony. Problems keep on changing their name, but it is basic wisdom to realize that every problem, every crime is fundamentally a problem of order. Order is not being maintained. And unless we go into the root of the problem, we will keep struggling with superficial names and forms. We will keep on trying to find a remedy for the leaf when the root itself is rotten. And that is not at all wise. That will not help. So unless man is driven by that inner order, there would always be strife. That inner order is something intangible, and that is why the moment one hears of it, one is alarmed. One cannot control it, and one cannot determine whether the other is being moved by it. It is indeterministic, it is intangible, it is not a subject of thought, but only in it lies any hope for mankind. One can otherwise keep on trying as many means and methods as one wants to. One can come up with very clever looking solutions, but they have failed and they will continue to fail unless there is an education that makes man fundamentally responsible to his own nature. Unless that is there, all means and methods are going to fail. So finally, I would like to define crime and corruption in a more fundamental way, in a very holistic way. There is only one crime: to not to know oneself and to go against oneself. That is the only definition of crime. And that is also the definition of corruption and disorder. If one is really serious about crime and corruption, then instead of talking of peripheral matters, one would directly look at that which causes all crime and corruption, and that is deviation from that which man really is. You need a system of education, and because the conference is happening in an educational institution, it becomes pertinent to point that out. You need a system of education that takes man to himself. Otherwise, crime and corruption will continue.